Airbrushing is considered one of the most technical demanding artist techniques. It requires precision, control, and many hours of practice. But once you master it, it's open up incredible possibilities for creating realistic and highly detailed works. Airbrushing is impossible to master quickly, but the result is really worth it. It's a broad subject. There are many types of airbrushes, compressor, and paints, and each of them is used for different purposes. In this video, I'll cover the basic and show you the tools and paints I personally use for airbrushing in my paintings. My name is Oleksandra Korolenko and I've been practicing airbrushing for over 14 years. Let's start with the airbrush. The airbrush must be dual action. I use Iwata HPB+. It's excellent for fine detail work. However, for large background fills and broad rays is not the most convenient option. The next important element is the compressor. The compressor must be with a receiver, so that air pressure is stable. I have a Sparmax TC 620X compressor. For consistent performance without clogging or paint splatter, it's important to use high-quality, highly pigmented paint. In my work, I primarily use Schmincke Aerocolor. Special attention should be given to the most sensitive parts of the airbrush, the needle and the nozzle. You need to be extremely careful with them. The tip of the needle is very thin and can bend even from the light blow or careless movement. The nozzle is also fragile. It can easily be damaged during improper cleaning, over-tightening, or dropping the airbrush. If either of these parts becomes deformed, the airbrush may start malfunctioning, causing splatter, uneven spray, and loss of line control. Next, let's move on to the practice. Add a few drops of paint and little water to the airbrush to thin the paint. To quickly mix the paint with water, it is enough to close the airbrush nozzle with a napkin. Then press down for air and gently pull the trigger back. When you see bubbles in the cup, it means the paint and water are mixing inside. Holding the airbrush correctly is very important. The thumb should be positioned horizontally parallel to the body of the airbrush. The index finger is slightly bent. For better control, support your working hand with your other hand and lightly rest on the surface. This helps prevent shaking and allows you to create a more precise line. One of the most important aspects of airbrushing is developing muscle memory and learning to operate the tool correctly. You must build the habit of always pressing down first to release air and only then pulling back to release paint. When finishing a stroke, return the trigger forward to stop the paint flow first, and only then release the air. If you don't develop this habit, you'll end up with paint blobs at the beginning and end of your lines. The closer I move the airbrush to the surface, the smaller and more focused the dot becomes. The farther away I move, the larger and softer the spray pattern gets. Let's draw a few lines to clearly see the difference. When the airbrush is close to the surface, the line is narrow, sharp, and focused. As I move it farther away, the line becomes wider, softer, and more diffused. Now let's refine this principle with a controlled line exercise. Press down to release air. Gradually pull back the trigger to increase paint flow. Hold the trigger briefly to maintain a consistent line thickness, then slowly reduce the paint flow, tapering the line to nothing. Finally, release the air. Do it very slowly, so you can really understand and feel how the mechanism works. If you don't train yourself to work this way, you'll get unwanted paint spots at the beginning and the end of your strokes. Once you're feeling confident drawing horizontal lines, start editing vertical and diagonal lines, then move on to different shapes. After drawing a line, go back over it, trying to follow the exact same path, and replicate the shape as precisely as possible. Also practice filling different shapes with an even, solid layer of paint. Focus on controlling the spray so you don't go beyond the edge or create excess overspray around the shape. At its core, airbrushing is entirely about the line control. It is thickness, sharpness, softness, and direction. Everything in this technique is built on line control. Without confident control, it's impossible to construct form properly, create volume, or achieve clean, precise results. That's exactly why exercises are so important. When you understand the fundamentals, the technique stops feeling intimidating and starts working for you. In many ways, airbrushing follows a similar step-by-step logic to acrylic or oil painting. There are some differences, but overall, the structure of building an image remains similar. We begin with general, creating the background, establishing major shapes and tonal relationships. And only then gradually move into the details, refining and straightening the image layer by layer.